With Classic WoW launch looming over the horizon, I wanted to provide a video to give a general PvP class overview with actual gameplay footage to help you pick a class that most appeals to you. All classes are viable and can win any matchup on any given day, which is why I personally love the PvP in Classic WoW, and is why it still appeals to a lot of people 14 years on. So let's get into it. The Mage. Mages are all about controlling the fight via great CC with polymorph and a range of slows from the Frost Tree. They have high damage and burst ability with all talent trees, however you're most likely wanting to be rolling a Deep Frost or Elemental build. They aren't as gear dependent as other classes and provide great mobility via Blink and their instant casts such as Fire Blast and Cone of Cold. Mages perform really strongly against warriors and rogues with their roots and slows, and via improved counterspell, which can silence for 8 seconds, and also really shut down other casters. Mages are one of the best classes against multiple opponents, with top tier CC, mana regen, and shields such as Mana Shield or Ice Barrier, which do a great job of absorbing damage. For the cons, Mages have one of the lowest health pools in the game. This is slightly offset by their shields and wards such as Fire and Frost Ward. You are vulnerable to classes that can silence you, in particular other mages. You will also be targeted a lot by other classes as they perceive you to be squishy. You'll also be doing a lot of this, drinking. Overall, mages are a really fun class to play. They excel across the board in damage, control, and mobility. Next up is the Warlock. The Warlock have amazing crit and burst damage potential via Shadow Burn, Conflag, and those juicy Soulfire crits. They can hit for well over 3000 damage. When you stack these together and crit, you can just absolutely destroy players. Dots provide constant pressure with Curse of Agony, Corruption, and Immolate, and just do great damage just on their own. Warlocks have decent crowd control via Fear, and all pets provide good utility. The Succubus with Seduce, it's a great CC ability which can combo with Fear and Soulfire, and essentially just CC lock players. Fell Hunters with Dispels and Silence, great against casters, and Voidwalker with Sacrifice. Damage scales really well with gear, and you have some good regen abilities via Hellstones, Soulstones, and Life Tap. Biggest con for the Warlock is the lack of mobility. You don't have any great escape abilities outside Death Coil and Seduce, and can have a bad time with multiple melee on you, and if any of these abilities are down. Other negatives is you will need to farm soul shards to use your most powerful abilities, which can just be a pain. Overall, Warlocks are one of the strongest classes in PvP, and from a pure damage potential hard to go past. Once you get enough gear, you can also roll Soul Link and become an unkillable killing machine. Hunters. Personally, one of my favorite classes to play. Hunters have great offensive and defensive abilities, have the longest range in the game and ability to kite any class with aspect of the cheetah. In particular, you can be a nightmare for rogues and warriors with your mix of slow, CC, and general range. You can hard counter rogues with Hunter's Mark and Flare. And as you can see here, this rogue is just having a bad time. You have great damage and burst through your aim shot. This can hit for well over 2000 damage, as well as multi-shot on your white damage, and can just cleave through casters, or be a pain via Viper Sting just to drain that mana. There is great range of control, CC and slow abilities via Concussion Shot, Scatter Shot, Wing Clip, and your trap abilities. Pets give you unique customization options as well. Yes, there's best in class pets due to attack speed. However, all pets offer something different, whether it be a cat or a boar with charge, and they're great against casters where their attacks will interrupt their casting. For the cons, biggest issue you're going to face as a hunter is the dead zone. Players are just too close for your range abilities, but too far for your melee abilities. Good players, in particular mages, will try and blink in, get in that dead zone, burst you down. Luckily, you do have a few abilities like Scattershot or Feign Death Freezing Trap combo to get you out of tricky situations. As a hunter, you also have no self-heal or mana regen, which can cause you issues in longer fights or when you get a lot of dots on you. Overall though, hunters very strong, really match up well against most classes, and have one of the highest skill caps in the game if you can master kiting. Next is the Rogue. Biggest advantage of the Rogue is obviously your stealth. You can pick your own fights and get the first move in. They've got really good burst damage, especially once geared, with high crit chance, and abilities like Ambush, Backstab, and Eviscerate, which can hit for well over 2000 damage. Really strong 1 vs 1, as well as against multiple opponents due to Sap. Hitting a well-timed sap on a healer can really give you an advantage, as well as just generally annoy opponents. Rogue's signature is probably their great stun lock. By combining Cheap Shot, Kidney Shot, Gouge, Blind, and Vanish, you can stun and kill players without them getting a chance to move. In group fights, stun locking the enemy healer so you and your team can burst them down is extremely valuable. Finally, all talent trees are viable and have great talents throughout, unlike a lot of other classes. Biggest con you're going to have with the rogue is you're very cooldown dependent. If you don't have certain cooldowns like Vanish or Sprint, then some matchups, like against a mage or a hunter, can be extremely hard to win, especially against good players. You'll be pretty squishy with only leather armor and low medium health, and when you're caught out of stealth, you can have a bad time, as everyone just loves killing a rogue. Overall, fun class to play, solo or in a group, and perfect for those who like the stealth gameplay. Next is the priest. Priests have the best heals in the game period. Everyone loves having a priest in their team for the heals and the buffs. They've got great shields, D-spells, buffs. Overall, they're just a great support class. If you're after damage, Shadow can and will melt faces. You have really strong damage via Shadow Word Pain, Mind Blast, and Mind Flare, which doubles as a slow. Combine these with Vampiric Embrace, and you just have a really good passive health regen going as well. Shadow is a very strong 1v1, and you got that damage, regen, silence abilities, and stun via Blackout. You can just be really difficult to kill while pumping out constant pressure and damage. Biggest cons you're going to have, especially as Shadow, is you can burn through mana quickly. And as a priest, you'll constantly be targeted and CC'd, as your heals and damage are a big threat. You can also be very vulnerable to melee when your shield is down, or you're playing Alliance and every second rogue is a goddamn undead with Will of the Forsaken. Warriors. Often considered unstoppable wrecking balls in vanilla, and this is true when you have a pocket heal and the gear that back it up. You can have really strong bursts via your crits using Mortal, Heroic Strike, and your white hits can absolutely slice your way through enemies, in particular cloth wearers. You have great AoE damage through Sweeping Strikes, Whirlwind and Cleave. Fury is also viable and provides strong damage. You've got some decent slows with Hamstring and Piercing Howl. And overall, warriors have the highest HP in the game. You can get up to 5,000, 6,000 HP, and pretty tanky with the plate armor. Biggest negatives you're going to have for the warriors is your poor mobility. Outside of charge and intercept, you will have issues getting CC'd and slowed. Your damage is gear dependent. You don't hit anywhere near as hard in blues and will need to manage your stances and rage generation to make the most out of your abilities. As a warrior, you will die a lot. You need to be on the front line to deal damage, and you're constantly going to be targeted by the enemy range classes. Especially in pugs, you can have a bad time without heals or good teammates. Overall, warriors are extremely powerful when well geared, and playing with good teammates, they can throw you some heals. Next up, we've got druids. The druid is all about mobility. They make the best flag carriers in Warsong Gulch due to the travel form, cat form, bear form, and when combined with their heals, make them extremely difficult to kill. You'll often see whole groups of players chasing a druid around Warsong Gulch trying to kill them without success. They can also provide decent CC via entangling roots and provide decent off heals and buffs via Mark of the Wild. As a feral, you perform very strongly against classes that rely on slows like mages and hunters due to your shapeshifting, but overall, ferals compared to other classes definitely don't do as much damage or provide the same level of healing as some of those other classes. Balance and feral can be viable when you get better gear. Overall, druids are not for everyone and are best suited by those that like a challenge and the thrill of having an entire team trying to hunt you down and kill you. Next up is the paladins, probably the best support class in the game. They have a range of buffs, blessings, auras available. Blessing of Freedom, which makes you immune to slows, is amazing for warriors, while Blessing of the Kings is a strong general buff. Really strong heals, and just really hard to kill. With Holy Shield, Plate Armor, means you can absorb a lot of damage. You have great cooldowns and long stuns via your Hammer of Justice. Nothing is worse than being stunned as a horde while the Alliance team just pummels you. Paladins can do some decent damage when you're geared by your various seals and hammers, or if you go down the Shokadin route, and perform strongly against most classes due to their durability in a fight. Again, biggest con for a pally is your damage is gear dependent, and you don't do a huge amount of damage in blues, and your various buffs can be dispelled or purged by the horde. Overall, paladins offer great support for the Alliance and are a solid class to play. Finally, we have the Shaman. People often think of enhancement Shamans having great burst, but it only really is great when you have the gear to back it up, as when you're in blues you just simply won't do enough damage and you're just relying on random number generator to do damage. Elemental is going to be the build you most see, as they have great burst damage with sweet crits via quick casting Lightning Bolt and Chain Lightning, and instant shock abilities that also double as silence, slows or dots. They have great support abilities via off healing, Purge. You're wanting to use Purge often and frequently, especially on warriors with Blessing of Freedom. There is a totem for every situation. They provide great versatility, whether it be slow, CCs, extra damage, damage boosts, resists, and amongst others. For the cons, due to the amount of totems you have the most amount of ability out of all classes to manage, which makes it hard to keybind every ability. You do lack escape abilities as well, especially against melee characters. You can have a bad time when you get a good warrior rogue on you. You're also gear dependent, and generally it is harder to gear up elemental shamans, as really a lot of raids only want resto shamans. Shamans are really fun to play, and it's all about them sweet crits and high numbers. And that's it. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. All classes are viable in PvP, and hopefully the video may help you in choosing a class to play in Classic WoW.